Hey, what's going on, guys? So, I know that I'm always moaning about the Marvel corporate synergy engine because it is genuinely frustrating when the movies do something and then the comics bend over backwards to make themselves look more like the movies, even if the characters in the comics don't look like this or act like that. Or sometimes you have a relationship that works on film in the context of that film that within the context of the comics, given the history between those characters, just comes off as disgusting and inappropriate. But sometimes synergy works in that when a big movie is coming out, Marvel remembers that they actually have comics based on those characters and start re-releasing old out-of-print trade paperback collections. And that seems to be the case with Fantastic Four, specifically Ultimate Fantastic Four, which hasn't seen the light of day in a long time.
It's been 84 years.
Now, Ultimate Fantastic Four, I liked a lot as a kid. This very much was my Fantastic Four, in the same way that everything else in the Ultimate Universe was my Marvel Universe. Not that I had that big a frame of reference with the Fantastic Four compared to a lot of other Marvel characters, mind you, like Spider-Man or Iron Man or the X-Men, back when I thought I liked the X-Men. In fact, the only real frame of reference that I had for the Fantastic Four were the cartoons, the Tim Story movies, comic book crossovers, and special guest appearances in other characters' books. Mainly Spider-Man books. But over the past couple of years, it really feels like there's been this massive heel turn against the original Ultimate Universe, which I've talked about at length already. But Ultimate Fantastic Four was the series that I remembered the least about. So with Marvel reprinting the series, and with the movie coming out soon, I thought it'd be fun to reread the first 18 issues of Ultimate Fantastic Four, which collects the first 3 arcs of the series. And then I read it. Okay, so I did not love this. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Not in the way that I love Ultimate Spider-Man or Ultimate X-Men or the Ultimates. But I realized why as soon as I finished reading the first arc. This was the last of that initial wave of Ultimate Universe titles, and it feels like the boy at prom that nobody wants to dance with, but you have to because his dad is the principal. Like, this felt mandatory. This was an assignment. In fact, Mark Miller and Brian Michael Bendis say as much in so many words in the introduction, which was in the back of the book for some reason. And this feels less like, hey, let's have fun reinventing these classic characters and stories, like so many of the other Ultimate Universe titles, and more like, oh god, how do we fix the Fantastic Four? And that's sort of the thing with this book. Like, you compare it to Ultimate Spider-Man, which also was written by Bendis and drawn by Mark Bagley. That book is rife with reinventions, but the reinventions are narratively and thematically inspired and make sense. Like, if you're given the opportunity to rebuild the Spider-Man mythos from the ground up, with the benefit of, at the time, 40 years of hindsight, I get having Peter Parker go to high school with Mary Jane Watson and Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy alongside Flash Thompson. I get skipping over the Crime Master and the Big Man and just going straight to Kingpin. And I get reframing Norman Osborn to be this sort of like post-crisis Lex Luthor type character of your book. I get that. And in the case of Ultimate X-Men, I get having your initial X-Men lineup be the original Jack Kirby first class of X-Men, minus Angel plus Storm and Wolverine, characters people actually care about. Like, I get that, and I get moving away from bright multicolored superhero costumes and going back to that original concept where the X-Men are all wearing black and gold uniforms because they're a paramilitary mutant response team. Again, that makes sense. That's an inspired choice. But the Harry Potterification of the Fantastic Four and making everyone younger and turning the Baxter Building into essentially Hogwarts for scientific prodigies, and Mole Man being a pederast who's obsessed with deflowering Sue Storm.
What the fuck are we doing out here? I asked you, what in the fuck are we doing here?
That said, despite the negativity that I've approached this book with so far, I don't actually think a lot of the reinventions are that bad on a concept level. I just feel like they're wrapped up in executions being carried out by co-writers who are trying too hard to fix the Fantastic Four, because space travel and family are like totally gay or something or whatever. But I do genuinely like the idea of the Baxter Building being a U.S. military-funded think tank, within the context of the Ultimate Universe, which I've come to refer to as the Marvel Gear Solid Universe, so I think that's pretty cool. I also like that instead of being locked in a Cold War space race, Reed Richards discovers the Negative Zone, and in an attempt to transport themselves there, their equipment malfunctions, and that's how the Fantastic Four get their powers. That's a very David Cronenbergian style concept, and I think that's fairly inspired. And I might be in the minority on this, but I genuinely love that Ultimate Doctor Doom is the descendant of Vlad Tepes Dracula, and instead of being a monarch over Latveria, he's just a weird homeless tattoo artist with delusions of grandeur, and he lives in a tent city in the middle of Denmark, and the tattoos that he's giving people are mind control tattoos, and that's how he builds his kingdom. Like, I think that's genuinely hilarious. Also, the Negative Zone itself being a universe stacked below the Ultimate Universe that is older and experiencing heat death is a really cool idea. That's a really cool concept. Same goes for Annihilus being a cosmic pirate who wants to ascend to the Ultimate Universe to escape the impending collapse of his universe. So, like, it's not like there isn't anything good about this book. It's just that all the good stuff happens once Miller and Bendis jump ship after the first 6 issues, and then Warren Ellis takes over the book. And what I think we're left with is a weird Surf Dracula situation, where if you were to break these first 3 arcs into a movie trilogy, the first movie is directed by Michael Bay, and it's like, yeah, Surf Dracula, that's a gay TV show from the 1960s, but we're gonna make it better and cool with, like, hot chicks in the military. But then the subsequent 2 films are directed by Christopher Nolan, and he's still working in the same continuity with the same characters and reinventions established by Michael Bay. He's just honestly doing his best to make it work somehow. And I didn't even talk about the art. Adam Kubert draws the first and third arc, and I think Stuart Immonen draws the second arc with Doctor Doom. It's fine, I like the designs. I like the updated Fantastic Four costumes that Brian Hitch designs. I also really like the demonic trash hobo that Stuart Immonen makes Doctor Doom. I like that visual overhaul for that character. I think it's really cool. But as far as the art itself is concerned, I don't think it matches the tone that this book wants to have, because the art here, especially Kubert's pencils with David Stewart's colors, is very modern pop comics. Like, it works really well in companion to something like Bendis and Bagley's Ultimate Spider-Man and Mark Miller's Ultimate X-Men, which Kubert also penciled and inked, I believe. But this isn't a fun superhero comic or a superhero soap opera like Ultimate X-Men or Ultimate Spider-Man. This feels more like a companion piece to the Ultimates. And I feel like it really needed someone like a Steve McNiven or a Salvador LaRocca, someone with a more photorealistic art style that specializes in drawing complicated machinery and stuff like that. But with the art present, it just furthers this idea that nobody knows exactly what this book should be, and there's no solid vision for it in the way that there was for the prior Ultimate Universe titles. But yeah, this book it's fine. Again, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. And I feel like a large part of that is due in part to me actually having read some classic Fantastic Four comics lately. Between Hickman's run, Fantastic Four Full Circle by Alex Ross, which actually got me into reading some of the old stuff from the 70s, and even the original Jack Kirby run, which I did a video on. After reading all those, I feel like I have more of an appreciation for the classic Fantastic Four and their place in the Marvel Universe. But Ultimate Fantastic Four, at the end of the day, this just feels like watching someone trying to reinvent the wheel, while also obnoxiously screaming while looking over their shoulders every 5 minutes that the wheel is fake and gay. So, yeah, not great. But again, not terrible, because I do think that there are some really cool ideas here, mostly from Warren Ellis. In fact, I really think if Warren Ellis was given the keys to the Ultimate Fantastic Four from the first issue, we could have gotten something pretty interesting. In fact, I know that we would have, because before this, he already wrote a really good Fantastic Four book. It's called Planetary, and it has amazing art by the late, great John Cassaday, and much like The Authority and Stormwatch, which are also written by Warren Ellis, it's one of the most important comics to the superhero genre that everyone just up and forgot about. But I digress. Anyway, all that said, I am curious to read the rest of the series. I vividly remember liking the Marvel Zombies arc, which I think was written by Mark Miller. I know for a fact it was drawn by Greg Land. I know that for a fact. And I think that's where the Marvel Zombies concept originates. And I also remember thinking that Ultimate Thanos was pretty cool, but that's like way later in the series, if I remember correctly. And there's some other stuff too. You know, I remember liking the Ultimate Inhumans. In fact, I think the Ultimate Universe was my introduction to the Inhumans. And even though it's technically not an Ultimate Fantastic Four story, it's an Ultimate Universe event, I really liked the Ultimate Galactus trilogy. I thought that was really cool. I love the take that Warren Ellis had on Ultimate Galactus. It's basically the fart cloud concept from Rise of the Silver Surfer, but like actually cool and interesting. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff here that I, at the very least, remember thinking was cool growing up. That I would like to go back and refresh my memory on because, you know, again, cool ideas here, but just executions are kind of varied. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Ultimate Fantastic Four. But what about you? Have you read Ultimate Fantastic Four? If you have, did you like Ultimate Fantastic Four? And if you haven't read Ultimate Fantastic Four, do you want to read Ultimate Fantastic Four after watching this video? Let me know down below in the comment section. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching, guys. Hit the like button if you like the video. And if you want to see more content like this, all you gotta do is subscribe. I'm the Mystical Green Beanie. Thank you for watching. As always, until next time, take care, guys. Happy reading.